What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue here with our 2023 predictions. The Auburn Tigers are up next. Let's take a look at some of the other predictions for Auburn. You see the FPI has them at 5.8 and 6.2. Athlon has them at 6 and 6. The over/under is at 6.5. So 6 and 6 seems to be about where this team is expected to be, but possibly 7 and 5. Again, that over/under is at 6.5, not 5.5. That means Vegas thinks it's more likely this team goes 7 and 5 than it is that they go 5 and 7. So my thoughts on Auburn: I think the addition of Peyton Thorne was pretty big. I think he's a quarterback that's going to come in and be the starter. And I think overall offensively, this team will be improved with the new staff, the new scheme. I think they're going to have a really good run game. I think the offensive line will be improved. Wide receivers will be improved. But they'll be improved as far as they'll be more competitive. They'll be able to, be a mid-tier SEC team, get back to that instead of being one of the worst teams in the SEC. But they're a long ways away from LSU, Georgia, Alabama, in my opinion. It's going to take some recruiting and other things to get Auburn back to where they can really compete in the SEC. So I think you'll see an improvement with this team, but if you're expecting them to jump in and compete for the SEC in year one under Hugh Freeze, I think you're going to be disappointed. And then you look at the defense. Really, the front seven does not impress me a whole lot. I think they'll be okay, but I don't see that big pass rusher like they've had in the past. Linebacker position, it's okay. I do think they'll have a really good secondary. That'll be the strength of the defense. But overall, this is going to be, again, an improved team, but not a great team. And let's just get to the schedule here. They'll open up with UMass on September the 2nd at home. A good way to start the season. Good way to start off the Hugh Freeze era. I think they will roll in this one. A game that I don't think will really be close at all. So I think they get off to a 1-0 start. And then they play Cal on September the 9th. And I think everyone is just assuming Auburn's going to win this game. Should be an easy win. Cal was terrible last year. I kind of disagree with that. I think this is a really interesting game. First of all, you've got this is just game 2 for Auburn under Hugh Freeze. This is just game 2, so still trying to get some things figured out. You've got to go out west all the way to Cal and play at 10:30 Eastern time. So I guess 9:30 for Auburn in the Central Time Zone. A really late night game, traveling way out west against a very experienced veteran and deep Cal team. I've been saying that when I was working on their roster. It was crazy how many players they've got that have experience on this roster. Now, they don't have the talent of Auburn, but they do have more experience, I think, than Auburn. And I think Ben Finley coming over at quarterback really helps them out. So I expect this to be a good game. I think it'll be a close game. I do think, because of what I just said, I think Auburn is the more talented team, and I think they will find a way to get it done on the road. But I don't think it's a guarantee by any means. I think this will be a tough, hard-fought 4-quarter game. But I think Auburn's going to find a way to get it done. And then I think they'll beat Samford. So a 3-0 start here for the Tigers before playing Texas A&M on September 23rd. Again, the road team had an advantage in this series for a long time, but the last couple of years it has kind of flipped to the home team. And this is just a Texas A&M team that they're closer, especially if we're talking about just talent on their roster, they're closer to Alabama and Georgia and LSU than those mid-tier teams. And I just think they have a lot more talent than Auburn. I think that this is going to be a very good Texas A&M team playing at home. I know Auburn beat them last year, but this is just a totally different story this go around. I think Texas A&M will win this game. So Auburn loses their first game of the season before playing Georgia on September 30th. Again, you've got a Georgia team that's just so much ahead of Auburn. The good news for Auburn is they're playing at home in Jordan-Hare. A tough place to play, rivalry game. I expect them to come out and fight, but I don't think it'll be enough. I think Georgia's just too good. Give me Georgia in this game. So Auburn loses 2 in a row. Then they get a bye week before a road game at LSU. You'd love to have this game at home. Of course, this series has had a lot of crazy games, and usually when things go well for Auburn, it's at home, and when things go well for LSU, they're on the road. But I just think this LSU team is going to be really, really good this year. Playing at home, I don't see Auburn having much of a chance in this one. So I think that LSU wins fairly easily, and that's going to be 3 losses in a row for Auburn. Then you've got Ole Miss next on October the 21st. Home game. I talked about this in the Ole Miss video. I talked about how this is one that has a lot of intriguing storylines with Ole Miss. You got Hugh Freeze, Lane Kiffin, all of that. Hugh Freeze coming from Ole Miss, used to be the coach at Ole Miss. You've got Lane Kiffin, who was about to go to Auburn, and then he didn't. So a lot of interesting storylines going into this game. I just think the Ole Miss offense is going to be too much for Auburn. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up. I really think this Ole Miss offense is going to be really good this year and be able to score a lot of points. And I think Auburn will be competitive. I think it'll be a good game, but I think Ole Miss has just enough to get it done. Maybe even a one-score game, but the Rebels win it in the fourth quarter, and that's going to be 4 losses in a row for Auburn. So after a 3-0 start, I think they do lose 4 in a row before they play Mississippi State on October the 28th. Mississippi State team that obviously is going through a coaching change as well. They've got a lot of experience. I think this is a pretty even matchup. I think these two teams, when you look at the rosters, very comparable. It's really a game that could go either way, but I think playing at home will be enough of an advantage for Auburn. I think they get this win over Mississippi State, and they improve to 4-4. Then they'll get Vanderbilt the next week, November 4th, on the road. Probably plenty of Auburn fans, though, making the trip to Nashville. And it's just a Vandy team that I've talked about. I know they've improved. I get that, but they're still a long ways away. And talent-wise, they're still clearly at the bottom of the SEC. So I think Auburn is going to go in there and take care of business. A fairly competitive game, but they probably win by 10 to 14 points. And a big win over Vanderbilt there to improve to 5-4. Then they'll get Arkansas on the road November 11th. This should be a really, really good game. I think, again, Auburn, Arkansas, Mississippi State, I think those teams are very even in the SEC West. And I think that's going to make for a really good game here. KJ Jefferson and the Razorbacks, that rushing attack, that could be a problem for Auburn. This is not a team that's going to want to air it out. And again, Auburn's strength is in the secondary. So a team that wants to ground and pound could be a problem for Auburn. And again, you go back to those other teams that I've got them losing to, Texas A&M, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, all teams that are going to be able to run the football more than likely. So I think this is a bad matchup for Auburn, and especially playing on the road. I think Arkansas does get this win. A competitive game, but Razorbacks too much. Auburn going to lose there. But then they get their 6th win with New Mexico State, so they will get to a bowl game. Then they'll play Alabama here on November 25th. And I think Auburn has a real shot in this game. It's the Iron Bowl. It's in Jordan-Hare. And I've talked about it. I don't think Alabama is what they used to be. I think they're a beatable team. And even as good as they were a couple of years ago. Remember, Auburn almost beat them, and that was a terrible Auburn team. So I do think Auburn has a real shot in this game. But I'm going to pick Alabama just because I do think they're still pretty significantly better than Auburn. But I would not be surprised at all if we saw an upset in the Iron Bowl. I would not be surprised if Auburn won that game. And in that win, or maybe a win over Ole Miss, yeah, they could get to 7-5. I think 7-5 is more likely than 5-7. But I'm not gonna get too excited just yet. I don't think Auburn is ready to be a 9-3 type team. I don't even think 8-4 is really very likely. I think 7-5 is a really good season, but 6-6 is still good in year one under Hugh Freeze. And I think that's enough to kind of get things going in the right direction, bring in a couple of really good recruiting classes, and you never know, Auburn could be right there near the top of the SEC again. But that's my prediction for 2023. We'd love to get your thoughts and your predictions. What do you think about Auburn? Let me know down in the comments below.